Okay, good evening, hello. It's 6:20, which makes me 20 minutes late. And we're doing now what we're calling the fourth part of the Maamar Vihecherim, as it were. The truth is, this should be the fifth part. Because the first class, which was 2 hours long, should really have been two classes. But it is what it is. I sort of finally learned my lesson that I'm just not doing this anymore. I'm not going to make these run-on forever classes. It's just not fair to me. It's not fair to the people. So this is a supplemental class on the Maamar Vihecherim from Tafshin Ches, Tafshin Chai, 1958, which we learned Wednesday, Thursday, Friday last. Why am I giving this class? I'm giving this class because two people requested that I should talk over two ideas from the Maamar that we already touched on with some more detail or some more direct attention. So that's the plan. The mitzvah tomorrow, we're doing the Maamar after this, which is the Maamar of Shabbos Mevarchim Iyar from Tafshin Chai from 58 years ago, I guess, right? And the name of the Maamar is Kimei Teischem. Kimei Teischem Einstein. Now, Bashgacha Yoina, the Maamar that we did in Lamed Ches, was also Kimei Teischa, so the ideas are going to be similar. I'm sure they'll be to some extent overlapping. But it's a hemshech to this Maamar. I did not learn that Maamar yet. I don't know what the substance is, but I trust that it'll be connected to these ideas. Exactly how, I don't know, but to these ideas. And of course, the structure and the design of this Maamar is the three concepts of the meaning of land and sea. The meaning of land and sea associated with creation, which is real tzimtzum. The meaning of land and sea associated with Matan Torah, which is a gili of Havaya de Leila, and the meaning of land and sea, which is associated with the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu and Torah Chadasha, which is Havaya and Atzmus. So we're here, and we're going to schmooze. We're not going to learn, we're going to schmooze. Okay, I hope this pleases you and pleases Atzmus Hus in Tzav Baruch Hu, the Rebbe, whom we ultimately all work for. And of course, we want to please the Rebbe as well. I want to give the Eibishter tons and tons of Nachas Ruach, because that's our whole mitzvah, is to give the Eibishter Nachas Ruach. Forgive me for being distracted at the moment. Okay. So Rabbi say, the first idea that we're going to be discussing is on the first page of the Maamar. It's on page 237. It's the last 10 lines on the page. And I'm going to start this way. When you learn Torah, and you learn Hasidus on Torah, much discussion is had about what's called the creation account. Much discussion is had about the union of Maaseh Bereishis, Hashem creating the world. Now, of course, on the one hand, the obvious thing about the creation account is the fact that it's so spontaneous, that it's so quick, right? First there was nothing, and then there was everything, and then over the course of 6 days, everything was put in its place. There's the heavens, there's the earth, there's the land, there's the sea, there's living things, there's plants, there's animals, there's people, etc. And then there's the Shabbos. Happens very rapidly, happens very, very quickly. Lahav le'elf alfi avdolos, the secular world, in its wisdom, in its supposed wisdom, in its desire to disregard the Bible, the Torah, HaKadosh, as a historic book, has to recreate history based on evidence, but it's not so much evidence as much as it is the interpretation of evidence. Places enormous stock in gradualism. If enough time passes between step A and step B and step C and step D, then it makes sense. Yeah, they went from nothing into something, and from gas into stars, and then planets, and then all the other stuff, until you have a living planet, the Earth. I think that adding more time to the equation simply is merachik esa'edus. It simply makes it easier to accept something which really is a matter of faith, because creation does require a creator. The Eibishter made the world. It didn't happen by itself. But somehow they have nechama, they get consolation, they feel more comfortable with a universe which happened by itself billions of years ago than a universe which happens according to the biblical description, that happens so quickly, very, very fast, rapidly. But there's another side to the creation account. And to the other side of the creation account, it didn't happen in an instant. It did happen over 6 days or 7 days. Or in the Lashon HaMishnah, Basar Mamoris Nivra Ha'olam, the world was created by 10 utterances. And there's a bit of a dichotomy here, huh? On the one hand, the Torah's description of creation seems, and is, I suppose, quite unreal. But on the other hand, the Torah goes out of its way to emphasize that creation happens in different components, different steps. And of course, the idea is that the Torah is telling us the truth. This is how it actually transpired. And it happened as rapidly as it happened because the Eibush is a kol yochel. Hashem can do the impossible, and if Hashem wished, it would all happen in an instant, like it says in the Mishnah, "B'maimer echad yochel liyibaris." And according to Chassidus, there's a concept of a maimer echad. Forget, in this maimer, that's the creation in the Ratzon HaBalakus. It happens in an instant. The stretching out creation over 6 days is not meant to make the creation account more plausible. It's meant to present the creation as the creation is, a place of distinct entities, different creations, different things that are distinctive in so many ways, including time, when they were brought into the existence. And of course, a person learns Chumash, Genesis chapter 1, with the Rishonim, with Rashi, and the Ramban, and the Even Ezra, and the Ralbag, and the Rabbeinu Bechaya, and the Rashbam, and all the other Rishonim. You get an incredibly diverse set of, and Rabbeinu Bechaya, of interpretations that enrich the creation account very profoundly. And often, the ideas written by the Rishonim are so incredibly sophisticated that they resonate, they sound true even in the so-called modern world with physical science as developed as it is. They're incredibly profound. And then, of course, you have ideas in Kabbalah, and then you have ideas in Hasidus that share that richness and that creativity and that sense of emes. But again, at the heart of it all, creation happens in 6 days or in 10 utterances, because there are 6 different components to the creation process, or 10 different basic aspects to the component of the creation process, which of course is then broken down into more and more sub-components. And the Torah is teaching us how the Torah, in other words, how it really happened, not based only on the physical manifestations, but on the requisite divisions. What things need to be separate from other things? Whether they're separated by utterance, or they're separated by day, or they're separated by both. Okay? So one of the concepts, which is basic to Kabbalah and Hasidus, of course, is that the first day is all about unity. It says in the Torah, "Vayera vayiveke yom echad," doesn't say Yom Rishon, doesn't say the first day. It says the day of one. So we learn from this that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yochad B'Elami, the first day of creation is distinct from the other days, because Hashem only made light, and inasmuch as Hashem only created light, or only created energy, if you will, all there is Him. The whole universe is filled with His space. And of course, the Chazal say that this means that the Eibusha did not create malachim. That means intelligent life entities until the second day. This is one of the ideas which is brought in many Rishonim, that on Monday the Eibusha already created angels. There's different kinds of malachim. Some created on Monday and some created on Thursday, but on Sunday there were none. Monday is the day of division. That's what it is. It's the day of division. That's why the Rebbe would always point out, and it says in Helikas Sfarim, on Monday there's no kitayv. On Monday there's no reference to kitayv. Every single time Hashem made something, each of the creations elicited from HaKadosh Baruch Hu a statement, and it was good, or it is good. Monday does not say kitayv. So it's explained in Hasidus, and again from Kabbalah, there's going to be a world. There's to be divisions. Divisions have many layers and types. And by the way, in Chassidus is in Teda Eid, in Lech Lecha of all things, Vivdila Pareches. For some reason, that's where it is. In Pashas Lech Lecha Teda Eid, you have a lot of Maamar about this whole business of separations. In order to have a creation, you have to have a separation. The most fundamental separation is the separation of creator and creation. If God pervades, God fills all of creation, then there's no creation, there's only God. So mechitzes, separations, divisions, screens that separate one thing from another, to allow distinctive identities, one thing on one side of the screen and the other thing on the opposite side of the screen, is strongly connected to the process of olam. Or to say it in the Lashon HaChasidus, that olam is Melashon Helam. The meaning of the word olam is hiddenness. The only way to have hiddenness is to have partitions, mechitzes and avdalas, which separate a higher level from a lower level, one aspect from another level, and so forth and so on. Yeah. And of course, you have this in the human body. You have the diaphragm, the kruma, the posli, the banash, which separates between the nehi and the chagas, and then of course you have what's called meitzar agoren, which separates between the chagas and the chabad, and so on. And these ideas are also understood physiologically. The Eibishter made divisions in his world so that there should be a world, a complex world, and of course each aspect of that complexity is limited and distinctive and interdependent upon the other aspects. So division is a basic requisite for creation. No division is no world. And like I said earlier, the most fundamental division of all is the division between creator and creation, between the presence of Hashem, the Ein Seif, filling all of time and space, into the concealment, the hiding, the tzimtzum of that light, so that there should be actual time and space where the Ein Seif is hidden and not so present as to overwhelm the Metzias or the Yeshus that is the idea of time and space. So it says in Sfarim, the reason it does not say Ki Tov on Monday is because mechitas are a bad thing. Necessary, but bad. If the Eibush is going to have a world, and the world is going to have a purpose, the first thing you need is separations, and the separations are seen as a necessary evil. In the Lashon Kabbalah, you can't have a world without Tzimtzum Arishin, and Tzimtzum Arishin is the source of everything. It's the source of Shveres Kelim of Teyu. It's source of the idea that Tam Eitz is Enik Tam Pirye. It's the source of the Yom Revi. The Chama was a likoi of the Me'eres. All of the aspects of creation that are described as being an inexact world are rooted in the Tzimtzum Arishin. So Mechitzas and Avdalos are necessary for there to be a world, but it's considered a necessary evil. So Monday is the bad day. It's very important. You can't have a creation without divisions. You must have divisions in order to have a world. But the divisions in and of themselves are considered a davar which is leitev, that doesn't say kitev. So the Rabbeinu Bechaya observes, Rashi says, pardon me, that the truth is there's another reason why it doesn't say kitev on Monday. Because Hashem never finished. Hashem made all the mechitas and avdalos on Monday except for one. Tuesday, the Eibishter suddenly announces, Yikavu Amayim Mokum Echad B'Teirah HaYabasha. The final division, which is the separation between land and sea, is announced on Tuesday. And that's why, of course, it's known that Rebbe talked about this so much, that Tuesday is called Yom Shlishi, the third day. Shehuch Ba By Ki Tov, where it has Ki Tov twice. And according to Rashi, the reason it says on Tuesday Kitev twice is because, number one, you have Gemar Malachte Shel Sheni. The first Kitev really goes on all the divisions of Monday, but Klayachal, the Eibishter didn't finish it till Tuesday. And then you Malachte Shel Shlishi, which is Tachi Oret Desha, the vegetation. Shemech. So of course the question becomes, why didn't Hashem finish on Monday what he started on Monday? And you'll have a Kitev on Monday and a Kitev on Tuesday. And the answer is because the divisions of Monday are not supposed to go with a Kitev. The divisions of Monday, although they're so critical to the realization of the purpose of the creation, but they are a setback. They're a necessary setback. They're, if you will, the Yerid, the Tzerach Aliyah, but they're the Yerid component. So Mechitza and Avdallah, which is so necessary for there to be a world, is seen as a necessary evil. So all of those necessary evils are Monday. Monday is the day of Machlekes. That's what it's called, Machlekes. And of course, as you know, in Torah, the word Machlekes has multiple connotation. It's used in many, many, many cases and instances and circumstances. And this is one of them. The last event of Machlekes is considered a positive thing. The separation of the land from the sea is considered a good thing. Therefore, it's not done on Monday, it's done on Tuesday because it's a positive machlekes, and that's why it's left for Tuesday, and you say ki taiv. In other words, what Rashi says, that it's finishing, Ma Malachta Shosheni, and Pnimis Yonim, they add that it's left over for Tuesday, if you will, to make a machlekes amongst machlekes. All the steps of division that are seen as necessary evils are done on Monday. The final step machlekes, which is the necessary good to begin the process of fulfilling the purpose of all the machlekes that made on Monday, is left for Tuesday. And Ben Bachai Taka brings the idea that's so familiar to Chabad Chasidim of Dira B'Tachtoinim. By the Eibush creating the land, now there's possibility for people to live on the land and to bring Hashem into the lowest levels and so forth. In Chassidish terminologies, the fact that the land rises up and the sea settles allows for what's called Alma Dizgalye. That means there should be creations who exist outside their life force. All creations that come from the water, that live in the water, were created by the water, and they have to remain in their source. All creations that live on land come from the land, and they're dafka outside of the source, by and large. Then, of course, birds are minat kak, Rashi says, it means a combination. So Tuesday, the Eibush does the last mechitza and Havdalah, because says the Rabbeinu Bechaya, the last mechitza and Havdalah is a positive step. So all the divisions, which are seen as not good or not good until they're corrected, is Monday. The one division which is seen as good because it's the beginning of correction is left for Tuesday, and that's separation between the land and the sea. Because then you have land creatures, including human beings, who are outside of the water, outside of their source. That means that they have free will, and they can serve Hashem, and all the chassidus that comes along with all that. In our Maamar, the Rebbe adds one more point, fascinating point. And the point that he adds is that the reason the separation of the land and the sea is advantageous of all the mechitas nadals that came before. And now we're putting words into the Maamar, of course, that all the mechitas nadals that came before are seen as necessary evil. This mechitza nadal is seen as the beginning of the correction, of the healing, of what's the reason for creation in the positive vein, is because the earth emerges. And akel hayim offer. Everything comes from earth. That's what he says in the Maamar. And the Rebbe explains, this is a pasuk, akel hayim offer is a pasuk. The Rebbe explains that there's a concept called Yesh Me'ayin. Yesh Me'ayin means something which is created in a way that seems completely independent because it's completely separated from its source. Its source is completely hidden from it. And according to Tanya, Yesh Me'ayin comes from Atzmos. Only Hashem has Yeshus. And because only Hashem has Yeshus, only from Atzmos and Hus, from the Eibishter himself, can there be Yeshus in the creation. And the Yeshus in the creation is rooted in the Yeshus of Atzmos and Hus, that comes by there being in between an ayin. So the Rebbe says this phenomena of yesh me ayin, you have to have an ayin between the first yesh and the second yesh. So there could be a yesh hanivra is offer. In the earth there is the power of ayin to create yesh. That's what he says. In the earth there's the power of ayin to create yesh because of the principle of nas chelas b'seif. Now anybody who has learned Tanya, he gets Akedah Simcha of the 20th letter in Tanya, is familiar with this phenomena of Yesh Me'ayin. And again, if you're familiar with the Tanya, you know that the Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe, has the first half of that Igeres HaKodesh, and the second half of that Igeres HaKodesh, and they're interfacing. I had teachers who used to explain to me that that's the two Shitas in Yesh Me'ayin, which have later on in Teishtan Zayin and Samach L'Samach, and then of course in the Hemshech Ranat from the Rebbe Rashab, which discusses this, as they say in Yiddish, Oisfilach, comprehensively, completely, thoroughly. The first half of that Igeres HaKodesh says that Yesh Me'ayin has to do with Oir. To create Yesh Me'ayin, you have to deliver the Yeshus of Atzmos and Hus to the end of the creation. Yesh Me'ayin is going to take place. Oir is Me'ayin HaMoed, and it delivers the Yeshus of Atzmos and Hus until the world. This is seen, the way I understand it, as what's called Tipas Atchar, right? There's two Yesh Me'ayin. There's the Yesh Me'ayin of the male Tipa, and there's the Yesh Me'ayin of the female Tipa, and then when the two Tipas join together, and a new Metzias is born. So the mashal, or the aspect of Yesh Me'ayin associated with Eir Me'ayin HaMoed has to do with sort of the Tipas Atchar. The second half of that Igeres HaKodesh, and I would argue that it's more than half, is that Yesh Me'ayin is in Malchus, or in the earth. First Malchus of Atzilus, and then the earth. Why no Tchilos on B'Seif, and the end is planted in the beginning. And of course this is this idea from Sefer HaYetzirah. Sefer Yetzirah speaks about this, and there's a philosophy here. The philosophy is, there are two ways to, I guess, this is it's so silly to say, but I'm going to say it because it'll just summarize the point very directly. There's two ways to represent God. A, to be very close to Him, and B, to completely submit to Him. To evacuate your own space so there's room for Him. And that's the difference between the first half of this Igeres HaKedesh and the second half of the Igeres HaKedesh. The first half of the Igeres HaKedesh says, Yesh Mayayin comes from Atzmus, Oyer delivers it because of its proximity. Oyer ain't safe is the closest thing to Hashem. It's simply a reflection of Him. It's nothing to its reality except that it's a reflection of Atzmus and Baruch Hu. So it doesn't only carry the ayin of Elokus, it carries the yeshus of Elokus, like this is the Chiddush of the Alter Rebbe. Yeah? But when you speak about Yesh Mayayin being in Malchus or in Afar, it's not because of closeness. It's because of surrender. In other words, the way Malchus represents Atzmus, the way Afar represents Atzmus, the whole idea is Hashem is everything. But everything that exists, because it's busy being itself, because it's asserting its form, covers over the fact that it's also Hashem. When you have a creation that because of its little worth vis-a-vis itself, it allows for the Eivishter to emerge through it because its own Metzias does not stand in the way. Why do we say that the earth is the Kelef Yesh Miyayin? Why do we say that the Koyach HaNukva, the feminine aspect, is the Koyach of Yesh Miyayin? Why do we say that Malchus of Atzilus is the Koyach of Yesh Miyayin? Because it's not trying to represent by the Eibush by being close to it. It's trying to represent the Eibishter by completely surrendering. I am not, and so long as I am not, the truth of I, which is the Eibishter, can emerge. And this is how the Maimonim analyze this question. What is the preferred way to represent the HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Is the preferred way to represent the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as is understood in the first half of the Igeres HaKedesh Tim and Chaf, Dveikus, you're so close to Hashem and you represent it? Or is the preferred way to represent the Lakus through His Batlas, by being nothing and the Eibishter takes up your space because you evacuate you evacuate yourself from your own Metzias in as much as you have no Metzias? And the final answer is the second is better than the first. That's how it comes out in Ranat. Hakel Hayim and Ha'ofa, that the Nukva, Yesh Miyayin is a feminine power, not a masculine power. Because the whole idea of masculinity in Kabbalah is trying to be close. And the whole idea of femininity in Kabbalah is trying to be bittul. And in bittul you have the Eibishter himself. So the Rebbe says in the Maamar, they have all of these machlekes, they're all bad. Until the last one. Because the last one produces Afar, the earth. And by producing Afar, something comes into existence that's distinctive, that's identified by itself. It's not identified by something else. That its identity is so surrendering, so bittul, the Eibush is able to manifest through it. So long as the creation consisted of higher form, even though hidden inside the water there's earth. But so long as the earth is hidden inside the water, it's part and parcel of water. And water, whatever water means mystically, but it doesn't mean. Surrender doesn't allow for the Ein Sof to emerge, it doesn't have that kind of bittul. So the Rebbe says that when the land is raised up, and the water is collected, and the land therefore separates from the water, and you have Yabasha, one of the aspects of the emergence of the Offer, besides for the things that we classically say about Almadis, Galia, and Bechira Chavshes, is a introduction of a new kind of bittul. Did not exist before, and that's why the beginning of life is Tuesday. Which life begins on Tuesday? Vegetation, plant life. And of course Wednesday you have other living things, and Thursday you have other living things, and Friday you have other living things still. But Tuesday is the beginning of life. Because the foundation for life is that something should be able to exist in a way which is separate from Hashem. But because it's living, it's reflective of Hashem. And the only way it can be separate and be reflective of HaKadosh Baruch Hu if it comes into being, Yesh Miyayin. Supposedly separate from the Eibishter, and yet it's expressing what the Eibishter is. And the prerequisite for that is Offer. That's what the Rebbe says in these few lines. These 10 lines, the bottom of page 237. So the Rebbe is saying, Nocha Maile, in Yukavu Amayim. Besides Yukavu Amayim, allowing the earth, continents to surface, where there can be people and free will, Yukavu Amayim allows for something that Eibishter made to have this property of bittul. So if you wanted to say it in philosophy, you wanted to say it in mystical terms, yeah? There's the heaven and the earth. B'chlal, the heaven Even the physical universe is defined by spiritual properties, not by physical properties, even though there's a spiritual and physical component of it. The earth, although it also has spiritual and physical properties, defined more by its physical properties than by its spiritual properties. And of course, this is a whole conversation. You look at the heavens, the way they're defined in Teda, it's not the stars. And the bodies of the heavens, it's the space of the heavens, and the malachim in that space, the galgalim. That's how they're defined. And on earth, we define things by their actual physical materials. But even on earth, there's different levels. And only the lowest level of earthiness, which is earth itself, which has no overt life, is the medium through which there can be Gili of Yesh Me'ayin. And as I explained to you, I think, I don't know, but I think that when the Rebbe says this Chiddush, that on Tuesday of the beginning of the emergence of Offer, so something that the Eibishter made has so much bittul that it can therefore represent the Eibishter, and through it, the Keich Ein Sof can be revealed in the world, is intended for the concept of Chayes, of life, rather than Metzias. The Eibishter made the world Yesh Me'ayin, and then he expects the world to reproduce Yesh Me'ayin. But where does the world reproduce Yesh Me'ayin? The world reproduces Yesh Me'ayin in life, not in matter. And the beginning of the reproduction of life, which is done by the earth itself, begins once the earth emerges. I think this is what the Rebbe is saying. So until Tuesday, there was still concept of Yesh Me'ayin. Hashem had to do it. The emergence of earth allows that now there can be a Yesh Me'ayin from within the world, it's within the creation itself, because the only thing, or the first thing that emerges as a separate entity, with sufficient bittul, that through it can be a Gili of Ayin, or the Keich Ein Sof, Keich Yesh, in creation is Offer. And the Rebbe says once Offer emerges, it produces all kinds of living things, not just plants, but animals, not just animals, but people. And the Rebbe also mentions this concept which is called Galgal Chama. And I told it to you at the time, Ha'adam nimena Offer, Bri'ayom va'afilu Galgal Chama, that I don't understand what Galgal Chama is doing. And I really don't understand what Galgal Chama is doing. To me, it's a very great problem. So I'm going to tell you a pshat, which I don't I'm going to tell you a pshat because I think it solves the problem partially, even though it doesn't solve the problem completely. And that is, you must understand, just like physically, there's a body and a soul. A human being has a body and a soul. The soul is life. The convergence of the body and soul together is a product of the Yesh Me'ayin, which begins at Akel Hayam and Offer. An animal has a body and a soul. The convergence of the body and the soul together is a property, is an expression of Akel Hayam and Offer. In the heavens, there's life. In fact, the heavens are defined primarily by Ruchnius, by the Yud, not by the He. But Yud nevelim haba, He nevelim hazeh. But in the heavens, there's also a Guf, and the Guf is the Galgalim. We focus on the heavens, and we talk about their physical identity. We don't focus on the stars. We focus on the space. The stars that fill the space are secondary to the space itself. And we say that this space is Bali Nefesh Dei V'Haskel Heima, like it says in Rambam in Hilchos Kiddush HaChodesh, that there's intelligence, there's neshama, there's life in these heavenly creations. The suggestion of the Maamar is, when the Eibishter created the world, and he created Shamayim and Aretz, heaven and earth, until Tuesday, when the Eibishter created earth, and because of the bittul of earth, the phenomena of Yesh Me'ayin in terms of life emerges from potential to actual, the heavens were there, but they weren't living. It's almost difficult to say that the malachim that were added into the heavens to make the Galgalim alive, which of course explains many, many things which are discussed in Kabbalah and Hasidus. It also explains a lot of problems that emerged later on. It doesn't start like was there a heaven before there was an earth? Yes, Beshamai says Shemaim Nivrat Chila, and we say Beshamai is correct, B'Payil, and Beis Hillel says Eretz Nivrat Chila, I think, and Beshamai says. Beis Hillel says Shamayim Nivrat Chila, and I got it all wrong. I forgot who says what because I'm confused about the Koyach and Payal thing. I'll look it up later. Yeah, but one of them says Shamayim Nivrat Chila and then Aretz, and we hold that that's the way it was b'Metzias. In Higoyin, in theory, Eretz Nivrat Chila because that's the Kavanah, Seif Ma'is Machshavat Chila. But the way it comes down through the steps, first says Shamayim and then in Aretz. But the idea that in Shamayim there's life. It's not just there physically, but that it's living, has a neshama, has a life, is a koyach of Yesh Me'ayin, which has to come from the creation. Although the Eibishter created everything, he wants the creation to reproduce it. Says the Rebbe, not only does the Adam and the Offer, Me'adama, produce life on earth amongst plants, animals, and people, the life in the Galgal Chama is also through the Ofen. And of course, I repeat again, I don't understand this. But this is what the Rebbe says. He's been trying to amend the Shabbat in Kehelas. I should look it up. This Rabbi Sai is the first idea that I promised whoever that I'm going to go back to. Then on page 240, we had the Mashal of Rabbi Talmud, and I got a specific request that I should revisit, that I should spend more time on the Mashal of Rabbi Talmud, so I will do so now. Naturally, I'm going to do so only with the Eibish's help, because without the Eibish's help, I, like all of us, is absolutely useless, but we'll do what we can. Just give me 1 second, please. Okay. Forgive me. The mashal of Rav and Talmud, of teacher and student, is used a lot in Chassidus. And I mentioned to you that it's mentioned in the first Maamar of Samach Vov. But if you want to learn about Oisvelach in great elaboration, in the Hemshech Ben Ameitza Tafresh Ayin Ches, I think in the second Maamar, the mashal of Rav and Talmud as a mashal for Yesh Mayayin for Tzimtzum Arishin is discussed far more elaborately than it is in Samach Vov. I'm essentially going to repeat what I said in the last class. I hopefully will be a little bit more clear, and hopefully will benefit those individuals who asked me to do this repetition. The premise is, or the presumption is, there's two types of teachers. There's teachers who pass on information, data. Teachers who pass on information are not necessarily smarter than their students. They may not be as smart. Pardon me, they're just old and they live longer. It's very simple. So they're not really teachers. They're giving information to the student that the student can find in other ways. They're facilitating it. The real concept of a teacher and a student, where he's not just giving information, he's teaching how to think. He's giving logic, he's giving reason. And of course, here we say that there's a Talmud Mamulach and a Talmud Sheni Mamulach. There's a brighter student, there's a less bright student. And there's smarter and there's deeper, and there's shallower and there's simpler. In the Rav Talmud relationship, there is the same ideas. Meaning to say, if there's a teacher who's a master, obviously means he's learned a lot. Obviously means he understands and knows a lot. But he understands it and knows it with a certain depth, a certain integrity, which would be called philosophically, with a certain unity, that puts him in a completely different class of his student. His student could be older than him, but his ability to see big picture, his ability to see unity, makes him a master. And therefore, he's the teacher and the other person is the student. The Dugma Ladova, the example for this, is a Vort. And by the way, this Vort, I think you have them in a Sikha from the Rebbe, from Yud Shvat Tavshim Mem Zayin. I heard this from Rabbi Lipsker. Anybody who knows him knows that he's not Shachas Bechlal to Guzma. He heard this from Rabbi Yael, and this happened to Rabbi Yael Khan. There was a Yid who lived in New York, who later lived in Eretz Yisrael, one of the greatest Goyim of the post-Holocaust era, whose name was Harav Chaim Zimmerman. Rabbi Zimmerman, he lived in America for many years. Then he moved to Eretz Yisrael and had a big yeshiva. Harav Zimmerman was a Goan Amiti, I don't know what else to say. He had a photographic memory and a deep tfisa, and he basically knew Kol HaTorah Kuli. He's one of those people with those infinite minds that it's not just he's smarter than us, it's not in our league. Harav Chaim Zimmerman used to come into 770. I recently met another Yid, a Shliach, who knew him from Eretz Yisrael. And he says he would come into 770, Rabbi Zimmerman would, and he said, I was a gentleman, I didn't want to bother the Rebbe. I would sit in the Zal. The Rebbe would occasionally walk in, he would see him, and they would sit down and talk. They could talk for 8 hours. And this younger man who told me this new aspect of the story is a big Talmud Chacham himself. It's a very big Talmud Chacham. He said to me, the Rebbe talking 8 hours is a sefer. It's mamish a sefer. And he says that Rav Zimmerman, Harav Zimmerman, at them gesagt that the Rebbe would start off usually with Harashba. ask a kasha, and then they would swim through Yama Talmud for hours. And he said, Rabbi Tzimah that he once brought, was after the war, the Talmidim from the Mir had come to America already. I forgot which one of them he brought, one of the famous Talmidim from the Mir. He was a Shiva in Tervedas. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. A big Talmud Chochem and a gewaltige Yiddish, an ehrliche Yid. And I'm sorry the name isn't coming to me. He brought him in, he said, I want you to Toyim Zayin Epis. He brought him into 770, and after 4 hours he said he couldn't keep up and he left. His name will come to me. But Rav Chaim Zimmerman could keep up with the Rebbe for these debates for hours. This is what Rabbi Zimmerman told a Yid from Yerushalayim. I mean, he didn't tell me not to say his name, but I'm going to ask him Rishus. When the Rebbe became Rebbe, he wanted to continue this practice, but the Rebbe, of course, was very busy, and it didn't happen as often as he would have liked. But again, going back to Rabbi Yael's part of the story, apparently it did happen occasionally, although Rab Chaim Zimmerman, Harav Chaim Zimmerman told my source from Yerushalayim that after the Rebbe was Rebbe, it really didn't happen. 8-hour conversations, but there were engagements. So Rabbi Yael Khan is not a child. Rabbi Yael Khan is a Goan Amiti. Rabbi Yael Khan also is a very gewaldige cup. He says the Rebbe would meet him in the hall, and they would talk and learning. And the Bachram would stand and watch. I mean, Melchamta Shel Torah. You're talking about 2 supercomputers. The Rebbe would stand still. Chaim Zimmerman was very excited, agitated, and they would throw pages at each other. And the argument would go on for a long time. They didn't quote a Gemara, they're just dafir Gemara, names of Dibur HaMascha, Varasha, Teisves, and they were communicating on a supersonic, a super level of speed. He told us once that he heard from Rabbi Yael that there was once such a vikuach that they witnessed in the Eresh Yordan, and at a certain point Harav Zimmerman stopped and he thought, and he said, Ich kann dir nicht abschlagen, aber ich halte sich bei meins. I can't refute what you just said, but I'm not backing down from my position. And it was explained that this was not even from Gaiva V'Yeshes, it's even from Torah, Seichel, on a real level of Chochmah. Anyway, the point of all of this is the following, that it happened once, that afterwards such a vikuach was witnessed by the Bachrim, the Rebbe went into his cheder, and then Rav Zimmerman turned around to the Bachrim, and he said to the Bachrim, the Rebbe is wie the Rambam. The Rebbe is like the Rambam. So the Bachrim said, how so? And B'chol, Rav Chaim Zimmerman felt that if you wanted him to share with you the Torah that he had from the Rebbe, you had to be baki in the sugi. He didn't just give it away for free. People wanted to go to him to get letters. He would ask them if they had learned those Masechtas. A kid said, he said to them, the Rebbe is like the Rambam. So they said, what do you mean? And he said, if it came on it verstehen, I'll not be able to explain it to you. Aber the Bachram then zugestanden, the Bachram insisted. So he explained the following. He says, what do you think? When the Rambam wrote the Sefer Mishneh Torah, he sat down, he learned Hilchas Krishma, and then he wrote Hilchas Krishma, then he learned Hilchas Tefillah, then he wrote Hilchas Tefillah, then he learned Hilchas Birchas Keinim, Kriyas Torah, and then he wrote those halachas. That's not what happened. He says, the Rambam learned Kol HaTorah Kula, Mitchlosav Sefer, whatever was available, Mikpot Kol Torah Shapeh Kula, Bavli and Yerushalmi and Safra and Sefri and Mechilta and Shiltus, and all the Midrashim of Halacha and of Agoda and the Go'onim until his times. And the Rambam collected from this Yeda a Torah that's a picture, where everything fits together into this incredible mishbetzes, this incredible lattice, or incredible, what's the word I'm looking for, panorama or mosaic, where each part of the Torah is consistent with the rest of the Torah because it's all part of one image. And then when he sat down to what halacha is, each halacha is culled from that visual Torah. So Rav Chaim Zimmerman said to the Bachrim the following: the Rebbe had etliche klolim, a few klolim in Shas, 2, 3 klolim. He says, I don't know what they are. But with this Rebbe, let's call it Kula. This is the word. Now there's more to say about Rav Chaim Zimmerman and his relationship with the Rebbe. I'll tell you one more word. I heard this from a Talmud of mine. I don't want to say his name without the Rishus, but he heard it from Harav Moshe Groner, Olav Shalom. Rabbi Leibel Groner is his youngest brother. That he was very close to the Rebbe. And the volume of the Likutei Sichos had just come out. A volume of the Likutei Sichos had come out, and he was sitting on the train. It was a very big volume, 600-700 pages. And he met Harav Zimmerman, and he said, Shalom Aleichem. And he told him this is a new krach of the Rebbe's Torah. He says, can I borrow it? I'll give it back to you tomorrow. He could learn through a sefer like that in a night. This is the kind of mind he had. A kid said, the way he told me, the way I heard the story, was the next day he came to collect the sefer. When he came to collect it, Harav Zimmerman looked at Zoy. This is mamish flamfai. This word is outstanding. He said, give me any rishon. Rashi, Tosfos, Rashba, Ramban. On any place in Shas, I'll tell you what they hold. Rambam. In other words, not every rishon, the most Rishonim don't have a pirush in Kol HaShas Kulei, but if you understand their derech in the places where they have Sfarim, you can surmise what they would say in the places that they don't have Sfarim. This is what he said. A Yid who lived in Dairenu, which is mind-blowing. This is like Rogatchover type of Go'inus. He says, any Rishon, I can tell you what he would say in any Shtickle Gemara. The only person's brain I can't figure out is the Rebbe. It keeps changing. It's always new. You think you have his derech, they've got a new one. This is a word. This word is out. This is mamish from fire. Anyway, I'm digressing. I'm taking too much time. This notion of a Yid who learns Kol HaTorah Kula and sees how the Torah is Torah Achas. Man sagt, der Rebbe hat gesagt, der Rogatchover said the Torah is Nekuda Achas. He said, by me, the Rogatchover said Torah is Es Nekudas. But I know that if I understand the Torah even more deeply, I'll see that the Torah is Nekuda Achas. There were Gedolim Amitiyim, who by them the whole Torah was Nekuda Achas. If the Torah is Nekuda Achas, every single halacha that they say is radiating from that Achas. And Derech Aga, this explains a Sicha from the Rebbe. I think it does at least. It is a Yedua de Kazach that Harav Yosef Kapach, Alav Hashem, the Chayna Levracha, wrote an article over 30 years ago, claiming that they had found a Ksav Yad from the Rambam, from the Geniza in Kahir, the Geniza's name is Geniza, where there is evidence of a Madura Reviyas of Rambam. The Rambam we have, the printed Rambam, is Madura Shlishis, the third draft that the Rambam wrote of the whole Sefer Mishnah Torah. But they found Ksavim, and it looks like it was a Madura Reviyas the Rambam was fixing. Not necessarily on the whole Sefer, but on certain halachas. And then Rabbi Yosef Kapach was Matzia, in an article apparently, that if you find a Madura Reviyas of Rambam, which is not the printed Rambam, where the Rambam changes Piskei Dinim, and then, like it says in the Tur, that the Tur based his Sefer on the Shleisha Amud Hira, the Rambam, the Rif and the Rosh, the Rif, the Rambam and the Rosh. If you find that because the Rambam changes his Psak, the Reiv changes, you have to change the Psak Allah. In other words, if the Rif and the Rambam and Madura Shlishis paskin the same against the Rosh, and the Madura Reviyas the Rambam paskins like the Rosh, you have to paskin like the Rosh. This is what he was Matzia. So the Shmua is, I heard this from a younger man who, I was not around Mem Zayin Yud Shvat, I was in California. But I heard this from a friend of mine who was. But the Rebbe spoke a Sicha about this. It's a Sefer HaSichas Tosh Mem Zayin. Yud Shvat, you could see it's a Sicha about the Maduras of Rambam. And what he told me was that the Rebbe did not want to be mefarsim the Sicha publicly until Rabbi Yosef Kapach would see what the Rebbe wrote and would react to it, and then he would be mefarsim it. The Rebbe edited the Sicha, but he said, Shalai lefarsimei. This is what I heard from a younger man who was involved in the Sicha at the time. What was the Rebbe's word? The Rebbe disagreed with him. And the Rebbe held that when the Torah brings a Psak Halacha, even though he says that he based the Piskei Halacha on the Shlosh Amud Hira, the Rif, the Rambam, and the Rosh, and that if you find a Rambam which changes his Psak, the Reiv will change, the Torah would not change his Psak. Why? For the reason I just gave. Because when the Tur wrote a Sefer Halachas, he wasn't a Tzanam Ali Safra, Chamer Neses Farim. The Tur had his own Torah. The Tur had his own Torah. And the Tur, like the Rambam, had a Torah on a level where it was all Nekuda Achas. The whole Torah was one Nekuda. His Piskei Dinim, which led him to the Torah Achas, which was his, was based on the Rif, Rambam, and Rosh, but it was his Torah. Meaning to say the Tur, in the bottom line, made his Piskei Halacha is not based technically on counting ini, mini, mini, 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, but because this is his own shita. So the Rebbe was arguing that even though the Roiv will change based on a Psak Din in Rambam and Madura Revis, which is just discovered, it doesn't mean the Torah will change his mind. Because the Torah's Torah was the Torah's Torah. It wasn't Stam Azeh that was collecting from others. The point of this whole digression is that Daily Yisrael HaMitiyim don't just know a lot of Torah, Bekiyim B'Shas. They have a tfisa in Torah, have a depth in their understanding of the Torah, with the whole Torah's Nekuda Achas, and everything they say radiates from that Torah, every Psak Din. So you could almost say that they have what you would call a visual Torah, they have a picture of the Torah. They can't teach you that picture, it's indescribable. They can teach you a halacha which comes from that picture. And this hitztaidus, this visual that I just gave you, explains what's called the Ein Arech of Rav and Talmud. How disparate, how far away a teacher is from a student. That the teacher's learning is seichel, but it's on a level of re'iyah. There's such unity in his intellect that he sees a picture. And everything that he teaches comes from that picture. And the Talmud has thousands of halachas, each one separate, because it doesn't have that quality of unity at all. And in the Nimshal, it's the difference between Koydem HaTzimtzum and Lachar HaTzimtzum. Before the Eibishter created the world, everything was Echad, everything was Elokus, everything was Eibishter. And that's a mashal for the Seichel HaRav. Everything is unified. But then you have to have a Tzimtzum HaRishon. So there should be a world where things are disparate. They may come from one, but the way they manifest, they're many dafka diverse. So you have to have a Tzimtzum. And Chassidus uses the mashal of this Rav and this Talmud to explain the process of Tzimtzum. And the first step is called Siluk Lagamre, which means the Rav turns off his Seichel totally. He doesn't think at all. Stops thinking. Because as long as he's thinking in his hitztaidus, in his visual Torah. There is no such thing as a piece of that. You can't reduce that. A Rav who sees Torah as Achdus, and he tries to communicate to his Talmud that Achdus, whatever he's going to say, the Talmud can understand nothing, or he's going to understand the total distortion, because the Talmud doesn't see what the Rav sees, he only hears. And when someone is saying what they see, the description is not partial, it's distorted. So the Rav turns off his Seichel completely, and there's nothing left. Nothing is left. Now in other Maimorim, the way the process would go is after the Rav turns off his Seichel, and there's nothing left, in that empty space, the Seichel HaTalmud fills. There's another human being here, who's also a Baal Seichel. He's an intellectual, but he's on a much lower level. So long as the teacher is busy in his world, he doesn't even see that person, and he certainly doesn't see the way that person's brain operates. When he stops thinking for himself, his empty space can be filled by that other person's brain. I remember the Rebbe used to prepare the Rashi Sichos Thursday morning by Kriyas HaTorah, and then again by the Fabrengen. The only time the Rebbe looked at a Sefer about Fabrengen was the Rashis and the Zayers. If they see but Rambam, the Rebbe didn't do this. Rashi and the Zayers, you read the nice. So I heard once from one of my mashpiyim, why did they have to do it by Fabrengen? Because they had to do it in our presence. He had to feel us to know how he can communicate to us what he's thinking. And it begins by the Rav turning off his own Seichel so that the Seichel HaTalmud can enter into that space, and he can speak to the Seichel HaTalmud something from the Seichel HaRav which the Talmud can understand. So it says in Chasidus, the Rav turns off his brain, and in that empty space, the world of Seichel HaTalmud enters. In other words, he's able to see the Talmud and how the Talmud thinks, and then he's able to figure out how he's going to find something from his Seichel which he can communicate to his Talmud. So in the typical mashal, in the classic mashal of Rav and Talmud, the Rav turns off his Seichel and there's nothing left of his Seichel, none, bunish. And it allows the Seichel HaTalmud to fill the vacuum of that mind. Once he understands how the Talmud thinks, he goes back into his Seichel and is able to draw something out in the language of Seichel HaTalmud, which is relatively Shmiya versus Riyah. In this Maim, it's a little different. I'm not going to say it's contradictory, but it is a little bit different. In this Maimah, what the Rebbe says, is that when the Rav reduces his Seichel, it doesn't turn off completely. It becomes a Nekudah. The entire Seichel of Rav remains a Nekudah. Now, what's the difference between the other Maimorim say? That when the Rav turns off his Seichel, there's nothing of Seichel Rav left over, and then the Seichel HaTalmud fills that vacuum. And what says here, that when the Rav turns off his Seichel, it's reduced to a Nekudah, which is, remember, the Keitza Elyon Shalayud. I don't know exactly. I certainly don't know at the moment. But Pashtus, it's a lower level. In other words, if the Rav is leaving even Kate's Ha'elyon Shalalud over, and afterwards he's Mashpiyah to a Talmud, and the Ein Arech between Rav and Talmud, and this Maimed is less than the other Maimorim. The very fact that even a drop of Seichel Rav can remain, even though it's a Nekuda, is that the Talmud and the Rav are closer. Because if the Ein Arech was absolute, then there couldn't even be a Nekuda of Seichel Rav. There have to be total Siluk. Seichel Talmud has to fill the empty space of Seichel Rav, that let it be Hashpah. So I'm not explaining completely why in some Maimorim the moshel is that when the Rav turns off a Seichel, there's nothing left. And in this Maimon, and I've seen this in other places as well, when the Rav turns off a Seichel, leaves over a Nekuda. But I suspect, I believe that the idea that the Rav leaves over a Nekuda is a Raya, that the Ein Arech of Rav and Talmud in this Maimon is less the Ein Arech of Rav and Talmud in other Maimorim. Perhaps because he's talking about Atzilus and Bria, and not before the Tzimtzum and after the Tzimtzum. I don't know. But beyond that, it's the same. The Rav Seichel is Shalei Bech the Talmud Seichel. So the Rav turns off his Seichel. Whether he turns it off completely, reduces it to a Nekuda. Then what's not written here, but is certainly insinuated and intended, in that empty space, the Madregas, Mahus Madregas Seichel Talmud fills. Once the Rav sees how the brain of the Talmud works, he can go back into his body of Seichel and identify a piece. In other words, if you have a picture, you don't notice details. But when you meet a person whose brain works only on details, it helps you go back into your picture and identify pieces within the picture, within the unity, extract it, and then develop it and bring it to the Talmud. And that's called the Ketzat Tacht and Shalayud, the lower Nekud of the Yud is the Rav who becomes aware of the Madregas Seichel Talmud. Then he goes back into his picture and chooses one idea out of an infinite number of ideas, out of a unity of ideas which is comparable to a tziyur. The Talmud helps him make that identification, because the Talmud lives in the Madrega of Pratim, and the Rav lives in the Madrega of Echad. But when the Rav goes back into his Seichel, after having met the Talmud and seen how the Talmud's brain works, and the Talmud's brain works in the Madrega of Pratim Dafke, Shmiya, not Re'iyah, and it helps the Talmud go back into the Rav, go back into his own mind and notice the Pratim that before were part of an Achtos. Now he's going to call out one aspect, bring it forward, and communicate it to the Talmud. When that Rav does that process, the idea of Seichel, which is being delivered from the Rav to the Talmud, so the Talmud should understand also in the Kudah. Because the Rav has only selected an idea. He hasn't developed it yet. After the Rav selects the idea, he tries to understand it. What's the Pshat tries to understand it? He knows this idea. And in his mind, this idea is not an isolated idea. It's not a distinct idea. It's part of everything. Because of the Talmud's world, he's learned, he's been inspired to isolate one aspect of the infinity of his Seichel and identify it individually, and he tries to understand it as an individual part. That process of understanding it as an individual part is for himself. But he's not used to understanding Pratei HaSeichel separately, as separate Seichlim. He sees them as an Achtos. Because of the Talmud's influence, he called the Prat out of the cloud, and then he understood it as an Inyan B'fnei Atzmei. That's the Hey, that's the Bina. So the only thing that's happened is that Rav has become aware of the world of the Talmud, and the Rav has created the Dvar Seichel, which is in the Madregas HaTalmud, in the Madrega of Pratim, the Madrega of Shmiya. After he chose the idea, and he developed the idea so he understands it himself, then he teaches it. But when he teaches it, there's a whole new process of Tzimtzum, because in addition to the separation between Rav and Talmud, at the Rav is a Madrega of Re'iyah and the Talmud is Madrega of Shmiya, even the Shmiya, the Rav is much, when it comes to understanding one individual idea, the Rav understands it so much better than the Talmud also, because each prat is part of the Klal. So there's another whole step of Tzimtzum. After the Rav identifies one prat of his Seichel, and he builds it up for himself, now he has to teach it. And in teaching it, he reduces it to an Akudah again. And then it's what's called Shetach HaMakabel. He finds the specific student's level and teaches it to the student the way the student's brain works. And this is Vav K. And that's what Amaim is describing. Yud K, Vav K. Now, thank you, Neshe Grossman, for your fine words, your complimentary words. Now, understand the point of this discussion, which is here quite concise. Like I said to you, in Samach Vav it's longer even, and in Reisha and Ches it's much longer, is one Nekuda. that when you're talking about tzimtzum for creation, it's asura mikan le'izkara l'sham. You can't be in the world of the Rav and the world of the Talmud at the same time. You can't be lifnei tzimtzum and la'achar. You can't be in the world of Elokus and the world of Helam at the same time. You have to go away from one to come to the other. Masha'enkin later in the Maamar, when he speaks Havai D'Layelu, and Alachas Kama V'Kama, when he speaks Havai Natzim B'Samhus, over here there's taka steps, but they're not mutually exclusive. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4. They all happen simultaneously, and therefore it's nimshach into the world. There's the same thing that was in the Ilm Yisrael. Rabbi said, these are the two ideas that I was asked to elaborate on, and I'm happy that I did it. And I hope, Blineda, tomorrow is Monday, so the shir will be around 5. We'll do Kimetes Chamayt Tzayim Tov Shin Yutches. Now, Tuesday is like Boimer. I'm not sure what's going to happen like Boimer. I may have fewer classes or more classes. Maybe we'll have a chance to put it up tomorrow night. We'll speak to Nechama. I may have to play it by ear.